Something unusual has been happening inside Team USA. And if you've been following women's basketball for any amount of time, you probably sense that the tension has quietly been building. For many people, the hope was that Sue Bird, with her long history in the sport and her generally positive remarks about Caitlin Clark, might bring a steady hand to the program. But the reality is more complicated than that. Sue is involved in so many corners of the basketball world. She's a podcast host, a league owner, deeply connected across organizations, and now a key leader in Team USA, that she's constantly juggling competing relationships. And as many observers have pointed out, when push comes to shove, the long-standing UConn network tends to protect its own. That dynamic is playing a major role in what has now become one of the most avoidable and bewildering controversies the sport has ever witnessed. To put it plainly, Team USA has created a crisis entirely of its own making, one that has spiraled far beyond what anyone could have expected. Caitlin Clark, arguably the most influential figure in women's basketball today, reportedly told officials that she would not participate in the upcoming camp if they insisted she give up her iconic number. And in the middle of this firestorm is Sue Bird, scrambling behind the scenes in an attempt to regain control of a situation that never should have existed to begin with. It's a mess that continues to grow by the hour, and the fallout could reshape the sport's culture and power structure in ways that will be felt for years. Older fans, who have watched the national team dominate for decades, are looking at this with a mix of disbelief and concern. This is supposed to be the most stable, organized, and respected program in women's basketball. Instead, it suddenly looks erratic and oddly disconnected from the modern era. Before we go deeper, it's worth pausing on the central question people are now arguing about. Is walking away from Team USA over a jersey number an overreaction, or is it a justified stand against something larger? There are strong feelings on both sides, and the debate itself highlights just how explosive the situation has become. For younger fans, personal branding and identity are crucial. For older fans, the focus is often on tradition and team unity. This clash of perspectives is making the controversy even more charged. At the heart of it lies an astonishingly simple decision. Team USA informed Caitlin Clark that she would not be allowed to wear number 22, the same number she has worn since she was a little girl. The number that has become virtually synonymous with her rise, her brand, and her identity as an athlete. For reasons that remain unclear, officials directed her to take number 17 instead, a number with no personal significance whatsoever. And according to multiple credible reports, Caitlin's response was blunt and immediate. If she couldn't wear a number, she wouldn't show up. That reaction seems to have stunned officials, but frankly, it shouldn't have. For someone whose entire public identity has been built around that number, the request was not only unnecessary, it was disrespectful. This isn't a case where the number was already assigned to a veteran player or where some long-standing tradition was at stake. The number 22 was sitting completely unused. No player at the camp had claimed it. There was no conflict, no scheduling mix-up, no legacy to preserve. The space was open. The solution was simple, and yet the leadership chose the single most complicated and combative route possible. And if you take a step back, this choice becomes even more baffling. Older viewers especially will remember past eras where the national team went out of its way to avoid internal drama. Leadership understood the importance of optics. They understood that public unity mattered. They understood that the national team represented something bigger than the individual personalities involved. That kind of careful stewardship seems to be missing here. Instead of providing clear explanations, transparency, or even a basic acknowledgement of the fan concerns, Team USA has responded with silence, a silence that has only amplified the public frustration. People want answers. They want to understand the reasoning. And when answers don't come, people begin filling the void with their own interpretations, many of which are less than flattering for the organization. That decision transforms this from a minor administrative issue into something that feels deliberate. It looks like a power play, a subtle but unmistakable attempt to remind Caitlin that, despite her fame, the organization sets the rules. And that's where this story touches a deeper nerve. Fans, commentators, and media figures immediately recognized that this wasn't really about a number. It was about respect, dignity, and control within a system that has long undervalued its biggest stars. The timing couldn't have been worse. This training camp, scheduled to begin on December 12th in North Carolina, was intended to be a celebration of the sport's next generation, a showcase featuring rising stars like Paige Buchers and Juju Watkins. Instead of excitement, the camp has now become the backdrop for a controversy that overshadows everything else. What should have been a moment of unity has been replaced by confusion, frustration, and a growing sense that Team USA has lost touch with the current moment. And for many older fans, there's an added layer here, a sense of déjà vu. They've watched sports organizations mishandle transitions before, especially when generational stars emerge with more cultural influence than traditional leadership expects. This isn't the first time an institution underestimated the impact of a transcendent athlete, and it usually doesn't end well for the institution. To fully understand the magnitude of the mistake, you have to appreciate what Caitlin Clark's number represents. For millions of fans, that 22 isn't just stitching on a jersey. It symbolizes her deep shooting range, her brilliant court vision, and the fierce competitive spirit that has captivated audiences. It's a brand marker, a visual shorthand for everything she has accomplished. In the landscape of women's sports, there is no number more recognizable right now. Replacing that with number 17, a number with no attachment, no history, no meaning, is more than a simple switch. It's erasing a part of who she is as a player. And when you zoom out even further, the picture becomes even more concerning. It wasn't long ago that Caitlin was shockingly left off the Olympic roster, despite her unprecedented impact on ratings, attendance, and global attention. That decision raised eyebrows across the sports world. Now, paired with this number controversy, people are beginning to see a pattern. It increasingly appears as though the organization may be uncomfortable with how quickly and how powerfully Caitlin has risen. That discomfort is not new in women's sports. For years, players have voiced frustration about being undervalued and treated as replaceable, despite doing the work that drives the growth of their leagues. So when the most influential athlete of her generation is asked to set aside the core of her public identity for no defensible reason, it echoes the larger issues of respect and recognition that female athletes have long battled. It's unfair to ignore Sue Bird-Physician in all of this. As managing director, she is tasked with balancing relationships, managing egos, and ensuring the program's long-term success. But instead of focusing on development and strategy, she has been thrust into the middle of a crisis that her own organization created. Reports suggest she has been moving between frustration and outright panic as she attempts to contain the damage, a nearly impossible task at this point. Older viewers will recognize the kind of institutional breakdown this represents. When leadership becomes reactive instead of proactive, when decisions seem arbitrary instead of thoughtful, when communication breaks down entirely, you get exactly this kind of chaos. And the consequences don't fade quickly. The deeper truth is that Caitlin Clark now holds every ounce of leverage. She has already solidified her legacy. She has transformed television ratings, sponsorships, and national interest in ways no one in the sport has ever come close to matching. She doesn't need Team USA to validate her. If anything, the program needs her far more than she needs them. And that's why the official roster announcement was so damning. Caitlin Clark was publicly listed as number 17, confirming everything fans feared. Meanwhile, number 22 sat empty, clearly available. Nobody claimed it. Nobody needed it. The organization simply made the choice not to give it to her. This situation also raises a larger cultural question. Why do organizations struggle so deeply when a young, charismatic star arrives and shifts the balance of attention? Why do institutions cling so tightly to outdated power structures? Older viewers have seen this pattern across multiple sports, in tennis, in golf, in soccer, even in men's basketball. The rising star almost always faces gatekeeping, resistance, or an attempt to keep them in line. It rarely works. This moment also intersects with the ongoing collective bargaining disputes happening across women's basketball. Players have been increasingly vocal about demanding fair treatment, fair compensation, and fair recognition. Caitlin's stand, whether she intended it or not, has become symbolic of those larger battles. Critics have argued that since Aya Wilson and Cameron Brink also were number 22, a conflict was inevitable. But history shows that these situations have always been handled quietly and respectfully among players. Team USA's intervention was unnecessary and heavy-handed, and it created a problem where none existed. Sue Bird is now the face of a decision she may not have even supported, yet she must defend it. That's the difficult reality of leadership within a system that still operates with outdated assumptions. And unless the organization makes a very public course correction, the damage may deepen. Caitlin Clark, for her part, has no real incentive to compromise. She has earned the right to draw a line. She has earned the right to expect respect. And she has earned the right to protect the identity she has spent a lifetime building. The next move belongs to Team USA. If they want her back, they need to fix this mistake openly, clearly, and without hesitation. This entire episode has opened up larger conversations about athlete empowerment. Specifically, the idea that players do not have to accept treatment they believe is disrespectful simply because an institution has historically held the upper hand. If Caitlin walks away, the ripple effect will be substantial. What happens next is still uncertain. Sue Bird may attempt to repair the situation with a personal appeal and a reversal of the number decision. Or Caitlin may choose to skip the camp entirely, a move that would shake the basketball world and force the organization to confront its missteps in a very public way. Either way, the damage to USA basketball's reputation is already done. They have shown themselves to be out of touch with the moment and unwilling or unable to recognize the value of their most influential star. And asking Caitlin Clark to abandon number 22 is like asking Michael Jordan to give up 23. It simply isn't realistic. So here we are, a crisis that didn't need to happen, created by a decision nobody can rationally defend, and now sitting squarely in the hands of a player who has more leverage than the organization ever expected. What she chooses to do next will shape the future of the program, and perhaps the sport, in ways that none of us have fully grasped yet. If you want continued coverage on this story, make sure to like and subscribe. And let me know in the comments below, what should Caitlin Clark do next?